Frank's son, Nick. On behalf of Rebecca, my sister, Christina, and our family, thank you for joining us to celebrate the incredible life of our father. It is both surreal and comforting to be here again with so many members of our memorial family today. A lot of our childhood heroes, Jay Perez, Zeph Ross, Gary Birkin, Shane Strum, John Benz, the incredible Leah Carpenter, so many others. We remember visiting our dad's office as kids and being in awe of you guys and everything that you accomplished. In fact, I'll tell you a story. When we were really little, my dad made me and my sister dress up as Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus at the administrative Christmas party and deliver presents to everybody. Hopefully there's no photo evidence of that. You're going to hear people tell some amazing stories today about Frank Sacco, the leader. My sister's going to come up here and talk to you about what an awesome dad and grandfather he was. So I thought I'd start us off this morning by sharing a little of the origin story of our dad and talk about some of the character traits that made him such a remarkable man. My grandfather and namesake, Luigi Nicola Sacco, arrived in this country as a young boy in 1907. The family was filled with hope and promise of the American dream. As with so many immigrants, he struggled to find work. He struggled at times to make ends meet. His children, my dad and my Aunt Betty, they grew up pretty poor. But they were always provided for, and they were always loved. And my dad's parents saw something in him. They realized that power and potential, and they pushed him to go to college and make a name for himself. And that became his first of many missions in life. Now, you all know Frank Sacco was a man who loved a great mission. And it became his mandate. In fact, he took it so seriously that in order to pay for college, he joined the Army ROTC at the University of Miami in 1970. 1970, same time the Vietnam War raged on. But failure wasn't an option, so he did what he had to do to accomplish his mission. In fact, so many of you might not know this, but he actually had orders to deploy to Vietnam, and as he was literally getting on the plane to head there, he received a last-minute change of orders because the world had different plans for him. He served honorably in the Army as an officer in the Medical Supply Corps for 4 years. Might as well have been 40, because those 4 years were incredibly formative for him. It's where he learned what good leadership looks like. It's where he learned what bad leadership looks like. He learned values like service before self, having the courage to do what's right, even when it's inconvenient. And he learned how successful execution almost always hinges on the importance of surrounding yourself with the right team of people. After he got out of the Army, he landed what he thought was going to be a promising job here locally in logistics, but soon would have required him to move to Chicago. And he missed healthcare, and he looked around and found a job as assistant director of housekeeping at Memorial Hospital. 13 years later was the CEO. Over the course of his career, he grew Memorial to the finest community healthcare system in the nation. Think about the sheer determination it takes to accomplish something like that in one generation. As I reflected on those character traits that made him so successful, Teddy Roosevelt's words about the man in the arena kept popping back in the forefront of my mind. So I want to read an excerpt of that. To me, that is just quintessential Frank the Tank Sacco. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by blood, dust, and sweat, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. My dad knew victory, and he knew defeat, but he never, not once, did he step out of that arena. And remember, he was a soldier first. For a soldier, it's all about we, it's not about me. And his victories were sweeter because he achieved them with so many of us, and his defeats were softened because he experienced them with us. He was bold, he was scrappy, he held a really high bar for everyone around him. And let's face it, there are times that that bar seemed too high, that his expectations were too great of you. And then you'd find out something about yourself. You'd find out you could stretch. But the highest bar he ever held was for himself. And he made sure that his children not only had everything that we needed, but that we also understood how tough the world can be at times, that we remembered where we came from and how important it is in life to have drive, passion, purpose, and grit. You know, I imagine children sometimes stand up here and think to themselves, nobody can understand what my dad meant to me, what it was like to have a man like Frank Sacco in your corner, giving you advice, pushing you to stretch. But the truth is, so many of you in this room knew exactly what that felt like. And although his physical presence is no longer with us, his influence lives on in the countless lives that he touched. They make his spirit immortal and are a testament to the kind of man that this world could use more of, especially today. Those values live on forever in the hearts of me and my sister and our children, and one day their children. They keep us all firmly planted in that arena, striving to dare greatly, even on days like these. Our dad's life is the manifestation of our family's American dream, one where we do not measure success by wealth or by materialism, but by impact. And of all of his accomplishments in life, that is his greatest. That is his legacy. And we'll work every day to honor it. We love you, Dad. We miss you, and we'll be forever grateful for all that you've given us. You know, I thought about all the Frank Saccoisms, the one-liners, the things that he was known for saying, some that he made up and some that he appropriated, made him his own. What would be the right thing to close out with my comments with this morning? And if you really think about all those, at the end of the day, there's really only one thing to say that truly honors him, and that's this. Go Canes.
Good morning. My name is Gary Birkin. For 36 years, I had the privilege of being on staff at Memorial Regional and Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital as a pediatric surgeon. During that time, it was my great honor to work closely with my friend and mentor, Frank Sacco. In the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you what to me was the essence, the soul, and spirit of a man we all came to love and why we so tearfully mourn his passing. This morning, together with his beloved family, we assembled to celebrate Frank's life. To his loved ones, we tender our deepest and most heart-filled sympathies. Your boundless compassion and love for Frank were his emotional buoy through many arduous days. We sincerely hope and pray that your love, adoration, and the touching memories you have of him will help sustain you through this trying time of healing. Frank Sacco once told me that leadership is a privilege. As most of us learned who were fortunate enough to walk shoulder to shoulder with him through our professional careers, his teachings contained untold wisdom and vision. Frank's incredibly agile and fertile mind produced ideas that spanned the gamut from flashes of genius to complex, highly integrated long-term strategies. A consummate trailblazer in every sense of the word. I remember him telling me that a remarkable leader has to see solutions to problems and challenges coming down the road before others even see the road. I'll never forget him telling me that. When it came to our healthcare system's major achievements, Frank was always firmly opposed to the notion of basking in their glory. Instead, he constantly was moving us forward, planning for the next great triumph. To Frank, resting on our past laurels was not an option. Flattering recognition, awards, and being number one never meant we couldn't do better. Frank's professional achievements were inspirational in their conception and praiseworthy in their creation. There's no greater example than Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. As a pediatric specialist, it would be remiss of me not to mention the integral part Frank played in establishing the first freestanding tertiary care children's hospital in Broward County. Without question, the creation of a hospital dedicated to the expert care of infants and children was one of Frank's greatest passions and professional goals. It was only through his inspiration, his vision, and guidance that on July 22nd, 2011, his career-long dream was realized when we cut the ribbon that officially opened the freestanding Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. And it is only fitting that that campus upon which the hospital stands now bears the name of Frank Sacco. Frank Sacco once told me that character was almost entirely about an individual's principles. But those principles only matter when it becomes difficult to adhere to them. He believed the only time somebody's ethical and moral doctrines were tested was when she or he faced consequential adversity. He expected all of us to remember this and embrace durable truthfulness, compassion, principled behavior, and above all, as Nick said, always to do the right thing. There were no shortcuts to excellence in Frank's world, and doing the right thing was an inviolate tenet in our day-to-day lives at Memorial. He was a tough and demanding leader, but a giant of a person who treated everybody with unfailing respect and dignity. He was a virtuoso of relationships, building relationships, celebrating others' successes and achievements more than his own. Above all, he found no greater fulfillment and joy than extending a helping hand to anybody who needed it. The fabric of Frank's DNA was woven with uncompromising integrity, dogged determination, and unwavering fairness. Like most experienced leaders, Frank could easily see the promise of excellence in somebody. But as he so often did, he took this perception to a higher level of erudition insight by insisting that an effective leader not only recognize the promise of greatness in individuals, but also the possibility of it in others. And by providing these individuals with mentorship, knowledge, and confidence and emotional intelligence, our healthcare system would be assuring their triumph over failure and their enthusiastic engagement over indifference. To know Frank was to know that he was a born storyteller. He loved recounting tales, anecdotes, and humorous recollections. His talent for telling a story helped to make him masterful at engaging others and enriching relationships. Now, if you'll allow me to digress just briefly, I'd like to share a story of my own with you about Frank on the topic of respect. As many of you know, Frank was a dyed-in-the-wool Miami Hurricanes football fan. For the past 2 decades, each fall, he'd lead a group of us on a weekend retreat to attend a Canes away football game and revel in the camaraderie of long dinners and exploring new college campuses, cheering on the UM football team and escaping the pressures of work. He dubbed us the traveling team. The inviolate rule was that all hospital-related issues were to be checked at the door, and there would be no discussions of family business. No discussion of family business would be tolerated at the table. On this particular gusty and rain-swept afternoon, we were in North Carolina. It was late in the fourth quarter, and the Canes were getting hopelessly annihilated with no prayer of a comeback. With the temperature rapidly plummeting, one of us, who shall remain nameless, suggested, look, we give up the ghost, depart the stadium, and proceed to the restaurant to resuscitate our chilled bodies with a round or two of pre-dinner spirits. At the time, the suggestion sounded like a light bulb moment. In retrospect, all evidence would be to the contrary. Foolishly, we all came to our feet and prepared to leave. All of us except Frank, who remained steadfastly seated in his perennial reserved chair situated at the end of the row. Swinging that quintessential gaze slowly our way, he regarded us through the tops of his dubious eyes. With a rather large sword of Damocles hanging over our heads, we fell into silence. After a few moments, Frank shook his head with purpose one final time, and then in a voice just dripping with theatrical disappointment, he said, "Did I miss the final seconds tick off? I guess I was too busy watching the team. We came 1,000 miles to support and cheer on to victory. But if you guys have given up the ghost and really think it's time to wave the white flag and go, I guess we can." All right. So, consumed by a group pang of regret, an apprehensive expression landed on each of our faces. We paused to exchange a cautionary look. And then, what could only be likened to a perfectly planned and arranged falling run of domino tiles, the 7 of us humbly retook our seats. Now, I'm sure to those fans seated behind us, we must have appeared like an Olympic synchronized artistic swimming team well on its way to winning a gold medal. And believe me, that's where we stayed with our hands folded in our laps, patiently waiting until that last second of that clock ticked off. So Frank, from the boys on the traveling team, we love you, we miss you, you'll forever be in our minds and hearts, and we'll expect to hear from you this fall on that special Saturday afternoon from your celestial seat on the 50-yard line, fervently reminding the Hurricanes quarterback, wake up, man, and try to remember this is a football game, not a pillow fight. My friend and mentor, Frank Sacco, was a man who lived by his own definition. He was larger than life and always led by example. Consumed with unparalleled energy and an impeccable work ethic, he cared deeply for the health and well-being of his fellow human being. It's an indelible truth that our healthcare system's road to enduring greatness was paved in considerable part by Frank's tenacity and many talents. So in conclusion, I borrow from George Bernard Shaw's astute observation because it's just so emblematic of Frank. Most people see things the way they are and ask why. Frank Vincent Sacco dreamed things that weren't and asked why not.
Good morning. My name is Stan Marks, and I've known Frank Sacco for 46 years. We met when he was a relatively young junior administrator, and I was a pain-in-the-ass new member of the surgical medical staff at Memorial Hospital of Hollywood in 1978. You know, we're here to celebrate a great and a wonderful life, a life full of friendships, accomplishments, successes, most importantly, family. Frank Sacco truly loved his family. I want to recognize the care and the love they have bestowed on him through his entire years. The support and love that you all gave Frank, especially in these last few months, made all the difference to him and to all of us, his colleagues and his friends. All of us here today wish you all peace and happiness throughout your lives. You know, it's difficult, if not impossible, to put into a few paragraphs and words the meaning of one person to another, let alone their entire life. Each of us is connected by relationships, work, experiences, events. Frank Sacco is connected to everyone here today. He created a tapestry of life and of being that touches each of us in unique ways. Frank will live on in each of our memories and recollections and stories. And it's healing for all of us to reminisce and tell these Frank Sacco stories to each other. Thus, it keeps his spirit and it keeps his life alive. And as I recall Frank Sacco, as everybody has said previously, he loved the notion of stories. Frank's great legacy, though, is his love of people and his life's dedication to all those he touched, and even those he didn't directly touch. As has been said, he excelled in leadership, and these leadership skills were used to teach, mentor, develop all of us who were fortunate to be in his orbit. Testament to that dedication is all of us, all of you here today. He was a master at developing and creating teams. The notion of a team for Frank wasn't merely knowing one's role or being an expert or being highly skilled at your assignment, but it was working as an integral cog in a grand design for the betterment of the healthcare system and our community. His skill in putting together the teams and developing each of us as members of that team to accomplish great things is in fact what created the memorial healthcare system that we know today. His dedications to patients and family-centeredness created a culture and a philosophy which grounds and centers the entire organization for the purpose of providing high-quality, safe, and compassionate care to all. That wasn't an easy task. It required multiple individuals, many of whom are in this room today, teams and groups that had to work together and collaboratively on multiple complex projects and goals over many, many years, many of whom had competing interests, personalities, can you imagine personalities, and goals of their own. Therein, though, was the skill and the power that Frank Sacco brought to bear. He led with integrity, with strength, and with purpose. There was never any question of who was in charge and leading to the ultimate goals or missions at hand. His notion of always focusing on the patient and the family centered all decisions regarding everything in this healthcare system. Frank said, just think about what's right for the patient and their significant others, and it will be the right thing for us to do. Could Frank Sacco be considered stubborn at times? Perhaps. It took a while and some convincing and sharing of a fairly significant volume of data, but Frank gave the go-ahead and fully supported the whole notion of developing an independent academic medical center at Memorial. With Frank's strategic thinking, the creation of a graduate medical education program that was totally independent of any other healthcare system and totally independent of any university was established. He recognized the competitive advantage, but more importantly, the definitive value for patients and for the community that this would create. And that's what resonated for Frank. His focus on providing outstanding care for all was a guiding principle in establishing countless programs which became regional, state, and in fact national models of care. To name a few, our primary care program, the Memorial Physician Group, the Health Network, Memorial Health Network. His focus on quality and safety before it became the thing to do in healthcare, and many other unique entities that touched so many lives and touched most of us here in the room today, became models of excellence in healthcare. All these initiatives were accomplished by teams of people that were created and ultimately led by Frank. Was Frank Sacco a competitive individual? You bet, but always with the best interest of patients. However, unless, of course, you were talking about Miami Hurricane football, basketball, cycling, to name a few. And I'll get to poker a little later. Speaking of competitiveness, I recall cycling with Frank once. It sounds like some of you know this story already. There was a small group of us in Naples. We went to a healthcare conference that we went to every year. And Frank suggested a bike ride. And innocently, I thought we were going to go for a leisurely ride around Naples. Usually I would play golf, or I'd go to the beach, or grab a beer or two. No, I was wrong, very, very, very wrong. And it didn't take me long to realize that this was the Tour de Naples. I was falling behind to a steady stream of somewhat colorful encouragement from our fearless and very strong cycling leader. And I won't specify the words that Frank used. Needless to say, he compared me to another surgeon. I wasn't part of the cycling team ever again. The Hurricane traveling football squad that Gary alluded to was absolutely Frank's squad, his team. These were some of the best times for those of us that were fortunate enough to be part of that squad. Great food, great drink, camaraderie. If the Canes weren't playing well, the commentary was quite animated and fairly spirited, and at times very colorful. And if you were sitting next to him, you were getting elbowed in the side relentlessly to a steady diatribe of what was wrong or right with the play. I remember missing one game, the first game. I had to go to a bat mitzvah. I never heard the end of it. He reminded me that I missed sitting in the owner's suite at Giant Stadium. I missed meeting Jim Kelly. I missed some great restaurants in New York City, of course, most of them Italian. And he reminded me again in Philadelphia when we were there 1 year ago, attending another one of our games. I'm going to miss every one of those Saturday games. Poker. The Sacco poker games. They were played at one of our very good friends' homes monthly. Highly competitive, a lot of fun. This was Frank's game, regardless of where we played. He made Texas Hold'em a science, an absolute science. And if any of us did something stupid by flopping something or betting fairly stupidly, we got one of those glances, Nick, you alluded to them, and they went right through you. I don't think that was definitely directed at me all the time, although I was on the receiving end of that fairly frequently. We had a wonderful game that we played every Christmas, and we went to Runway 84. And Frank came up with the idea, we're going to play poker to see who pays for dinner and drinks. Great idea, Frank. I don't think he ever lost that game. The one good thing was you couldn't lose 2 years in a row and have to pay twice. Thank you, Frank. I think we all know what a memory Frank had. It was legendary. He could remember details of almost everything, but especially games. Any of us who wanted to know anything about any game, it didn't even have to be the Hurricanes. You could ask Frank. He knew down to the score and the specifics. Who threw a winning touchdown? Who shanked a kick? I'm going to miss all of those times. Gary alluded to the strategic wizardry that Frank displayed. He was a master of strategy. Just listening and watching him think and verbalize his thoughts was a doctorate in strategic thinking for those of us around him. We were fortunate, many of us, to be around when he began thinking about the advent of the Children's Hospital and the advent of creating a real healthcare system out of the Memorial Hospital of Hollywood. He was one of the most thoughtful and deliberate leaders, and he trained us to think strategically. But his knowledge of the community, the political landscape, the movers and shakers, the healthcare trends, that was unmatched. And he had a sixth sense. He knew what was going to work and how it would work to achieve the goals. That strategic thinking has to be missed, I'm sure. Frank was the most loyal individual and supported his staff and all of his employees always. He expected focus and hard work. No one worked harder and was more focused than Frank Sacco. He led with integrity, fairness, strength, compassion, and humility, and ultimately, his biggest focus was people. Whether it was the chief of a clinical division, a member of the kitchen staff, a member of the board, we were all treated the same. Respect, honor, and dignity. And he expected nothing less from each of us. He loved his community. He loved his healthcare system. And it's evident today by all of you who are here that we love him right back. I will forever miss my leader, my mentor, my colleague, and my friend. There's a saying in Hebrew, Zeph, forgive me, Zikrono livraka, may his memory be a blessing for us all, and his family and loved ones should know no further sorrow. Thank you. Goodbye, Frank.
Well, those are two very, very, very tough acts to follow. Nick, Chrissy, Rebecca, Marlene and I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to you and to every member of Frank's family who is here with us this morning. And also to all of those members of the family that are not able to be here today. During his courageous fight with cancer, Frank was not only surrounded by the big, important people in his life, the grown-ups, he was also surrounded by the even more important little people in his life, his grandchildren. They filled his life with constant happiness, and joy. I'm humbled to have this opportunity to speak at this celebration of Frank's life. During my career at Memorial, not a single day went by that I didn't spend time with my friend, mentor, and boss, Frank Vincent Sacco. After my retirement, we always remained in touch, speaking on the phone often, visiting each other from time to time, and getting together for good food and live music. As many of you know, he loved both. Used as an adjective, the word frank refers to a person whose nature is to be sincere, to be open, and to be honest, particularly when dealing with unpleasant matters. We also know that the word frank refers to someone who was very matter-of-fact and brutally honest, even when it might be awkward or it might make others uncomfortable. People who are frank don't beat around the bush, and they don't sugarcoat things, and they express their thoughts and opinions very openly. They are direct in asking for what they need and what they want. Interestingly, the three strongest characteristics of the personality traits of individuals who have a frank nature are reliability, integrity, and trustworthiness. These are the very same attributes that we seek to develop in ourselves and in our children. I worked with Frank for 30 years, and I and countless others can tell you that Frank Sacco was the embodiment of reliability, integrity, and trust. The name Frank, as opposed to the name Frank, or Franco in Italian, means free man. It would seem that Frank's mom and dad knew exactly what would be Frank Sacco's great destiny when they named him. True to the meaning of his name, it's no surprise that Frank would accomplish so much in his life. Frank has left a living legacy in this community that will continue to meet the healthcare needs of the public for countless generations to come. Frank was 36 years old when I met him. He had already been at Memorial for 9 years when he hired me in 1983 to work in radiology. Without my having much of a track record in leadership, he gave me the opportunity of a lifetime. At 29 years old, he saw something in me that I had not discovered in myself. Over the years, he provided me with the advice, the guidance, and from time to time, the non-negotiable instruction that I needed to grow my skills and, more importantly, my self-confidence. Frank gave me and so many others at Memorial the most valuable gifts that one can receive when young and beginning a career. Those are the gifts of opportunity, the gift of friendship, and the gift of support. A few years later, I became a member of the administrative staff, and I was moved into an office on the first floor just down the hall from Frank. Not a single day went by without a personal visit or two, sometimes 3, from Frank. He would literally just drop in unannounced. As many of you know, he always preferred face-to-face conversations rather than a telephone call. That's just the kind of person that he was. During those visits, he always had good advice to give, valuable lessons to share about the Memorial organization and its history. Like all good leaders, Frank made everyone in the organization feel special. In true leadership fashion, throughout his career, he took time to mentor countless individuals, making each one of them feel that they were unique and special to him. And you've already heard some of that this morning. Under Frank's direction, a healthy and enduring culture of memorial pride grew strong throughout an organization that was very carefully transformed from the sleepy memorial hospital of the past to the world-class memorial healthcare system that we know today. Doctors, nurses, clinical professionals, ancillary and support staff, all sharing the same vision, all sharing the same memorial pride that has given so much meaning and purpose to our lives and our work together toward helping others. Frank was toughest on the people he liked the most, but he was always tougher on himself. He was a great judge of character. He knew just how hard to push each individual to help them reach the next level in achieving their full potential. Throughout my career at Memorial, Frank was always there for me, always. I will remain eternally grateful for his mentorship and the countless opportunities that he granted me. I am not alone in this regard. I know that there are countless people at Memorial who are in this room today who feel exactly as I do. Frank treated everyone with dignity and with respect. It didn't matter who you were or what department you were from, whether you're a board member, a physician, a clinician, a member of the support staff, or a member of the security department, plant engineering, food service department, or housekeeping. Everybody was treated with respect. Frank was always happy to listen to a need or a concern from an employee, never aloof. His ability to remain approachable, even as he ascended to the highest position in the organization, was something that was recognized and appreciated by everyone. Frank's vision of creating an integrated world-class healthcare organization at Memorial led to the use of off-site strategic planning sessions. During these workshops and retreats, Frank and expert consultants led members of the South Broward Hospital District Board, leaders of the medical staff, and members of the administrative team through planning sessions for development of new clinical programs and services of excellence. This very intense planning process provided clarity for geographic expansion and the development of new clinical programs, as well as construction of modern facilities. Frank's 41 years of service to Memorial, including his last 28 years as president and chief executive officer, transformed the Memorial healthcare system from one hospital to 6 throughout South Broward County. The net worth of the organization when Frank retired in 2016 was over $1.8 billion. And Memorial had achieved the enviable distinction of being the 3rd largest public healthcare system in the entire nation. Furthermore, the organization had the lowest tax millage rate ever recorded in its history, a bargain for the taxpayers of South Broward County. Talk about execution. In addition to seeing Frank Monday through Friday, when he took up the sport of cycling, this is the part that gets good. I would also see him every weekend on our Saturday and Sunday morning team memorial group rides. In fact, some of our best conversations were on those rides. Despite his size, Frank was a very disciplined and very competitive cyclist, always keeping up with the best of us, as Stan Marks alluded to a little while ago. I hope he's recovered by now. I'm sure the memory is killing him. From time to time, Team Memorial would travel around to attend organized rides throughout the state and elsewhere. Rain or shine, we always had a really great time. Frank loved those events, and all of us enjoyed the camaraderie. Frank particularly enjoyed time at his beautiful cabin on top of Shepherd's Ridge in Georgia. We did some serious hiking and serious cycling in those mountains. I will carry those memories with me forever. If you know anything about Frank, then you know that he was a proud University of Miami alumni. And he was a diehard University of Miami Hurricane football fan. One of his favorite things to do each year was to travel with our Memorial Traveling Squad to an away game. Frank, if you're listening, the traveling squad will miss you. And while I know you'll be there in spirit with us, those trips will never be the same without you. And as long as I have your attention for a minute, all of us on the traveling team are sending big congratulations your way. In case you haven't heard the news, it's a long way. Last Saturday's 41-17 victory by the Canes at the Swamp was the most points ever given up by the Gators in any home opener ever in its history. That's 117 seasons. What a coincidence. I'm just saying. At his retirement ceremony, Frank said, "I leave with the joy of knowing that I have used every fiber in my DNA to make Memorial successful now and well into the future. And as I embark into the next phase of my life, I am leaving the organization in superior condition and in good hands with our Board of Commissioners and our outstanding teams of executives, physicians, and staff." In true Frank Sacco fashion, Frank gave Memorial all he had to give. He left it all on the field. Being good was never good enough for Frank, as he would often say. Good is the enemy of great. Frank Sacco was never great. Frank Sacco was never good. He was always great. When anyone who understands the culture of Memorial Healthcare System hears the name Frank, there's only one person that our mind can see and only one voice that our ears can hear. Frank Sacco was Mr. Memorial through and through. He created an organizational culture that to this day, every member of the Memorial Healthcare team is proud to call their own. Frank Vincent Sacco's legacy speaks for itself. His energy exists within every wall of the Memorial organization, within every building, within every hallway, within every person that knew him or knows his story. Each one of us here this morning can honor Frank's legacy by passing on this wonderful story of the house that Frank built to everybody you know. Frank, on behalf of every patient served by the South Broward Hospital District and the countless individuals you have inspired to be great, thank you. Rest in peace, my friend. You have fought the good fight, and you won. You will always be simply the best. Thank you.
So how is it that I get to follow the other three legends of the Memorial Healthcare System? It's always my luck. Good morning, family, friends, and colleagues of Frank. My name is Leah Carpenter. I'm a nurse, a longtime Memorial employee, mentee, colleague, and friend of Frank's. I am so grateful to have the opportunity to share in this day and to celebrate the incredible life that Frank led. While his passing is an immeasurable loss, there have been moments of joy, reuniting with so many friends and colleagues and sharing priceless memories about the impact Frank had in all of our lives. When asked to say a few words to honor Frank, I wasn't sure that I could do it. Then I heard Frank say, "Kiddo, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, man up, do it for me, do it for Becky, do it for Nick, and do it for my family." I'm honored and humbled to offer a few words about an extraordinary mentor, a die-hard champion for patients, a servant leader, and a loyal and dedicated friend. Becky, Nick, Chrissy, and family, Frank loved you so deeply. He spoke of you all the time. We watched you grow up. And on behalf of my own family, as well as the entire Memorial family, please accept our deepest condolences and know how eternally grateful we are to you for sharing your beloved Frank with us for so many years. We know your family's sacrifice was great. And as Frank shared with us upon his retirement in 2016, and Jay, you stole my line, I used every fiber of my DNA to make Memorial Healthcare successful now and well into the future. We appreciate your collective generosity more than you'll ever know for giving him the space and giving him the grace to do just that. I met Frank in 2001 at my interview to join Memorial. That interview turned out to be more of a discussion, an exchange of ideas about how Frank was doing things differently, a journey through his vision for the future, and the path he intended to take to change the trajectory for Memorial, and ultimately, healthcare in South Florida. I remember thinking, this guy is a dreamer, or he's brilliant beyond imagination. It turns out that he was both. As he talked in the animated and compelling manner we've all become accustomed to, he re-energized my spirit and what led me into healthcare. He told story after story of his vision and how he was going to bring it to fruition. I was inspired and quickly realized I just had to work for this future icon, a decision that proved to be one of the best I've ever made. Frank was the real deal and gave decades-long master classes on leadership. He was an extraordinary mentor and authentic visionary who instilled the values of integrity, honesty, personal accountability, and compassion. He expected us to infuse those same traits with every interaction we had with teams, patients, families, community, and with each other. Frank insisted that we have the courage of our convictions and to always do the right thing every time, all the time, always putting the patient first. This was his mantra from the day I met him in 2001 and until his final days. He believed that integrity could not be taken away. It was ours to hold on to or ours to give away. And as leaders, we would be tested time and time again, sometimes to the point of having to put a job on the line to protect what was right. Attitude reflects leadership. It's a quote you all know, or many know, and it's from the movie Remember the Titans. And it's one of many Frankisms we came to know. He believed this with his whole heart and his whole soul and ingrained it in his team. In fact, I recall him renting out a theater and taking the entire Memorial leadership team to see the movie as part of our own development, with the goal of inspiring Memorial's cultural revolution. Frank was a master coach and surrounded himself with top-notch talent, continuously developing us to carry forth the culture and the foundation that has led Memorial to greatness, but he unapologetically took no prisoners. Many don't know that Frank was a self-professed introvert, but you'd never know it because his passion for doing the right thing by patients and his community produced his own special, unique charisma and magnetism. But I can go on and on about how great Frank was as a leader and mentor, but make no mistake, Frank was not easy to work for. He had the highest of expectations for all of us, was intentional in his actions, and he did not tolerate whining or excuses. He only wanted to talk about solutions, and he wanted to see results. Frank did not care about being liked, as he learned early on, being respected was a far greater asset in leadership. As with many great leaders, Frank made the complexity of what he did look easy to many, and many thought they could do what he did. But in fact, it was anything but. And he continually raised the bar, pushing us hard, but also providing us with the counsel and resources needed to succeed and to become the best versions of ourselves. I remember he once asked me during one of our many one-on-one meetings, I'm sure many of you remember those meetings, "You're not afraid of me, are you?" And I recall looking him in his eyes and saying to him, "No, sir, I'm not afraid of you, but I am petrified of disappointing you." This is what he inspired in all of us. Frank was an unwavering champion for safety, quality, and service because he believed every patient deserved the best care at a time when they were most vulnerable. They deserved to be treated like family, and they were never a medical record number, but always a person with a name, someone's mom, brother, or child. His passion was to be the safest healthcare system in this country, and he empowered us to do whatever it took to achieve it. Frank had defined values that were demonstrated through the creation of our pillars of excellence. Everybody knows them, right? Safety, quality, service, people, growth, finance, and community. And they remain at the foundation of what Memorial is still today. He refused to ever allow the bottom line to supersede the safety or quality of care we provided or the environment our teams worked in. Many years ago, there was a significant gap in care for our sickle cell patients. After hearing about the proposed solution, someone at the table made the dire mistake of commenting about how much it was going to cost and that there would be no return on investment. Frank's reaction, and I quote, "I don't bleep, bleep care what it costs or if we lose millions on this. We owe it to these patients to do the right thing and provide the care they need and deserve, so we're going to do it." And so we did. Frank saw healthcare defined not only within the four walls of our institution, but also expected that we be present everywhere in the community, wherever there was a need. He believed wholeheartedly in taking care of every member of the Memorial family so they would be healthy, happy, and capable of taking the best possible care of our patients and their families. I remember him leading efforts, just to mention a few, in providing assistance to our staff through the Employee Relief Fund, assisting with rent, phone, and electricity payments for employees who had come upon hard times, providing protection to members of our team who suffered in silence as victims of domestic abuse, ensuring gasoline availability following devastating hurricanes, and home repair assistance when tragedies such as fires occurred in their own families. Frank was indisputably the greatest of all time and the best who's ever done it. I believe, if you're lucky, once in a lifetime, you are blessed with a mentor who brings out the very best in you. And Frank did that for so many, not just in South Florida, but throughout this great nation. Long after his retirement, he continued to provide guidance, counsel, and tough love, gifts that I'll value forever and will miss more than I can ever express. I am profoundly saddened by the loss of my mentor and role model, and truly heartbroken to have to say goodbye to my dear friend. But I am equally honored and feel blessed to have known him and to have had the time that we all did with him. Frank believed, and therefore we all believed, that there was no mountain high enough, which led us all to be simply the best. We can best honor the man and his legacy by keeping the torch alive for generations to come. Again, my heartfelt condolences and much love to Frank's family. Please know that I and your Memorial family are here for you always. Rest well, my friend. Watch over us and know that you have more than earned your wings. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm one of the lucky two in this building that knew Frank solely as Dad. The world's greatest dad at that. I'm his daughter, Christina, and before I speak about what a great dad he was and share my favorite memories, my brother, Becky, and I would like to thank you for being here today and for the outpouring of support we've received. I could stand up here all month to share great stories about him, but I'll keep it to my most favorite moments. I first met my dad in 1982 when I was born at Memorial Hospital. Little did I know then what a jackpot I hit with getting him as a father. I was Daddy's little girl right from the start. My dad was always there for me despite his busy schedule. From an early age, he taught us responsibility and fun. He would make my brother and I clean our rooms. Then we would have to stand in the doorway as he yelled out, "Inspection," channeling his Army days to review our thoroughness. We spent a lot of time as a family just playing in the pool, watching football, riding bikes, and hanging with our dogs, whom Dad loved dearly. As a young girl, I was obsessed with competitive dancing, and he always attended every dance recital and competition, which now as a parent, I see what a true commitment that really is. Some of my favorite high school moments were when my dad and I would watch Lifetime movies and 90210 together, eating popcorn and drinking orange juice, while sitting in his recliner just hanging out. Another favorite is that he always took me to get all of my homecoming and prom dresses down in Aventura, and then we would go to P.F. Chang's afterwards and chat about life. My dad was always there for me. He always took my calls while at work to answer my ridiculous questions. In addition to all the fun we had from a young age, he always encouraged me to speak my mind and always do the right thing, even if that was the hardest choice. Our family time continued, but had now evolved. We watched Seinfeld and Sopranos and enjoyed delicious Sunday dinners at mostly Italian spots. He really pushed me to get out of state for college, which I hated, but turned out, of course, to be one of the best decisions of my life. Dad had a way of always knowing what was best for you. He and I would take multiple trips a year to and from North Carolina, stopping in little southern towns to explore, and always making time for our favorite type of tour, a ghost tour. He would come visit Elon in our little town, knew all of my friends, all their names, where they were from, always curious. His beloved nickname, Frank the Tank, was born when he recreated the scene from the movie Old School at a fraternity party. He also helped me finish my high honor of achieving the Wall of Foam at my local college bar, and together we finished 85 different beers. In addition to being my dad, he started becoming one of my best friends in my adult years. Into my adult life, my dad really pushed me to become my best possible self. He inspired me to excel and continue to speak my mind. We shared a love of music, as you've heard. He loved music and food. We attended a lot of concerts together, but our favorite was the Rolling Stones concert in DC, and on the metro ride home, we got the entire train car singing Sympathy for the Devil with us. He shared a love of the mountains with us. We started taking on hiking and opened a new world of exploring the Appalachian Trail, with Dad, of course, being our hike guide. As a family, we started to enjoy the slower days and the simpler things in life, like sitting on the porch, drinking wine or whiskey for Dad, and listening to great music. In 2016, he retired shortly after my oldest son, Colin, was born. He would come over every day to help me with a newborn, which ultimately meant, let's have lunch, and he took a nap while I watched my son. In all seriousness, he bonded with his grandsons immediately. Colin took a liking to Grandpa's passion for war history, and the two would chat on the phone and watch war documentaries together, specifically about World War II and D-Day. Also, in his retirement, with his great support, I launched my own business, and how lucky was I to have free access to that genius's brain. He advised me and counseled me with his wisdom, strategy, and care for people. He couldn't turn it off. Literally, in the last week of his life, he asked me for my 2024 financial projections. Thank you to Dr. Atif Hussein and Dr. Sarathia and your teams for all the love and care you gave my dad. Thank you for giving us an extra 2.5 years with him. I could stand up here for another 3 hours and tell you everything we squeezed into that time. But I'll give you my personal highlights. He was able to meet his only granddaughter, my niece Phoebe. We were able to take a bucket list trip to Europe for the first time together, specifically for him to visit Normandy. We celebrated milestone birthdays for Becky and me. We had our final family weekend away this past Memorial Day. Dad and I had our last coffee date and our last dinner out at one of our favorite spots in Ormond Beach. But most importantly, he watched his grandson learn how to ride a bike, a high priority for him. Dad, I know you'll be my hike guide, leader, and best friend from above for the rest of my life. I already miss calling and texting with you all day. I miss hearing about your Publix BOGO deals, the adventures of Uncle Voodoo Kitty, and hearing your uncensored thoughts on the daily, if not hourly, political news. I will miss you and love you forever. I promise I will always live my life doing the right thing as you taught me, and I'll truly miss pranking you every April Fool's Day.
My sister leans over and says, "You should say thank you for everyone for coming, and that you can go now." She is every bit our father. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It really means the world to us. Thank you.